RugbyRenegade.com, the #1 online strength and conditioning program for rugby. Are you ready to get bigger, stronger, fitter, and faster and dominate your opposition? Welcome to the Rugby Renegade Podcast, where we build machines.
Today's episode is sponsored by Fizz Hydration Tablets, the convenient way to get your hydration needs, vitamins and minerals covered in one easy tablet. To get a discount of 20%, use the code SPORT20 at their checkout. Welcome back to episode 63 of the Rugby Renegade Podcast. Today we have a real good chat with our very first ever podcast guest, Ed Cosner, and that was over 4 years ago, so really look at what he's been doing since then, and I guess the key thing, he's currently working with NOLA Gold in the MLR over in the States, so chat all about that. And of course he still works heavily with Ben Franks, so kind of hear about what he's doing, what they've got up to together, visiting some different teams and sports. So give it a listen and let us know what you think. Ed, welcome back to the Rugby Renegade Podcast. I was just saying, we were talking before, and it's just over 4 years since we did that very first podcast. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what you've been doing since then. We talked a lot about the development of rugby in the States, and I know you've been working in that, so that'll be interesting. But why don't we start, you just tell us a little bit about your background for people who didn't hear that first podcast, and then go into a bit more depth into what you've been doing the last 4 years.
Well, just like before, I mean, the background kind of like, I've been obsessed with being a strength athlete and now coaching for probably the better part of my life. Started lifting when I was a kid like everybody else, but I just kind of took it to a whole new extreme. But started out my career as a thrower mostly in high school and playing football. And when I got in the Army, I still was throwing, but I got just obsessed with being strong. I'm World's Strongest Man was starting to, show on TV in the 80s and all of that more. Being stationed over in Europe, there was a lot more access to it. So, but always knew that I wanted to be a strength coach. So started training a few guys like privately that wanted to, increase, obviously increase strength, because the San Antonio, there was only basketball, so the Spurs were there, some of those guys, and I started training a guy that had played for John Wooden at UCLA and was not allowed to lift weights. John Wooden didn't allow it because it would mess up their shot, and David wanted to start training with me, so I started training David Greenwood, who was a first round pick. Got a few more guys, and then volunteered to work training camp for the Houston Oilers when they were still around before they became the Titans. And the strength coach there was like, well, you have to have a degree. I'm like, well, I'm a world-class strength athlete. What the hell I need a degree for? But you got to have a degree. So went to University of Texas at San Antonio, where I started the strength training program. They didn't have a strength coach. And so I started there, going to undergraduate school coaching, went to Baylor, got my master's degree, and then got really lucky after that, was looking for jobs when the NBA lockout started, and I went back to basketball, went to the Spurs when the lockout lifted. So I'm the only 5'10", 125 kilo white boy with no jump shot with 2 NBA championship rings. So, but long time ago, I met Ashley Jones back in '95. So I went down and visited him in '06 with the Crusaders, and absolutely fell in love with the training of like the tight five, the front row. Basically, I get kind of hemmed in with that because I trained Ben Franks. I've trained Owen as well here and there. But having a track and field background that I do, both in coaching and in that, plus I've trained everything from bobsledders to Olympic silver medal fencers, badminton players, judo, taekwondo, a guy that was had won one of the real big, can't remember what it is now, not MMA tournament, but like mixed martial arts tournaments. One of those like Gracie guys, and that trained him as well. So I could train everybody across the spectrum. I just like to train the guys that really want to work. I got a lot of high school players. Since we last talked, and I'd been living in Houston, I had my gym. I had quite a few. I had 9 high school All-Americans that in rugby that have went on to playing now in college. Another one's just now leaving high school, and he'll be playing at the University of California. And I have them all over the field. So don't always want to hem myself in, but that big body is what I have, and so it's kind of like where I've gravitated a lot of my stuff to. Even with basketball, I concentrate a lot on the bigs, the 4s and 5s. 7-foot kids. I have 7-footers that have power snatched 100 kilos off the floor at 7 foot tall, 6'11". So. And I expect them to be able to be flexible enough and talent and coordinated enough, because a lot of times you get them, and it's no different in rugby. You get kids that either move like a drunken giraffe or a drunken rhino, can't figure out where their limbs are supposed to go. And so try to teach them basically how to move first and then how to get stronger. So not always strength-based. I mean, people look at me and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're going to turn everybody into you." I'm like, buddy, you don't want to look like this. Well, nobody wants to sit next to you on a plane. My wife doesn't even want to sit next to me on a plane. So, but and it's a lot of work. I mean, but this is the sports that picked me. I didn't get to play rugby, except a little bit in the Army. And that, I mean, I got the sport of, Scottish Highland Games picked me. Powerlifting picked me. Not Olympic lifting, powerlifting, because I wasn't that fast to be an Olympic lifter, but I'm strong. So, you gravitate towards the sports that they pull you, the ones that you'll be good at. So I never wanted to be that, mediocre lifter or anything out there. So, but, last year, 2 years ago, my wife got a really good job in New Orleans, and I moved here, and I became the strength conditioning coach for the New Orleans Gold in the MLR, Major League Rugby. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Let's talk about the MLR at the moment. Obviously, with COVID-19, it's thrown everyone's seasons into kind of disarray. But how are things developing with rugby and obviously the MLR over in the States?
It seems like the MLRs, because I'm on as a strength coach, I don't get to go to all the meetings, that kind of stuff. But it seems like it's really doing really well. We're considered a small market in New Orleans. And we have one owner, where several teams have, multiple owners. And we're trying really hard and this is only the 3rd year and it got cut short, really trying hard to develop a culture here. It's hard. A lot of the guys don't all live here, so they're not together all the time. There's very few. And last year was my first off season with them. We ended up having 18 guys that stayed around here in New Orleans, got jobs. The club paid for, I guess the club paid for some of their apartments and that, but a lot of them got jobs to be able to pay for everything else. So just so they could train in the gym with me, and then I would take them out there to do some running. And as soon as you introduce, hey, I'm going to do some running on these with some of the players, the rugby coaches all want to come out there and help out. They all want to come out there and help out. They all want to come over and take over. So, and my head coach, Nate Osborne, is friggin' awesome in that he'll teach me. I'm, obviously the strength part's easy, and then learning, because I don't have access to a lot. Oh, wait a minute. Went to pet my stinky bulldog that got out of his bed there. I don't have access to a lot of the conditioning games. The conditioning is not that difficult, but adding some of the games in. So Nate came out and we started doing a lot of we would do some speed work, and Nate would take him for some skill work, and then I would get him back and get a little conditioning, get a little fatigue in him, and Nate would take him back, and we worked really well that way. That's why this being shoved into a early off season after 5 weeks was really it hurt. because these guys had really put a lot of work in. I enjoy coaching here. I enjoy the players. So the rest of the MLR, I mean, it seems like it's doing well. I mean, they seem to have a very good organization with all of them. We just added a guy, George Killebrew, who's I guess he would be the commissioner of the MLR, and he comes over from the NBA. So to be able to lure someone like that over to run the run the whole of the MLR has to say something good about it. And I got to talk to George because like I said, I spent from '99 to '03 in the NBA, and so we talked about different people that we knew and everything else. So, and then as you said, the NOLA Gold had signed a partnership with Claremont Rugby. So that's been it was nice. They had some of their guys over here, one of the strength coaches, one of the physios, and the manager of the team, Neil. And then when we had signed it last year, they sent me and a player over and got to visit Claremont, got to visit their facilities. Also got to visit Ben Franks over at Northampton with the Saints, and hang out with him for a week, for 4 or 5 days until I tried to eat him out of.
And what
I'm hoping for a good season next year.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
and you mentioned Ben there. Obviously, we spoke a lot about your work with Ben and Owen, between and before World Cups and things. What are his sort of plans? You mentioned before he's looking into coaching and things.
Yeah, I think he's moving to a coaching position next as he retires. So I'm sure he'll make that announcement when they officially end. I don't know when they officially end thinking about coming back to the Premiership. So it's it'll be really good for him. I think he's going to be a fantastic coach, not just because he was such a fantastic player, but because he's really worked hard at learning. I mean, that's the one thing he enjoys learning. And he and I mean, we've been together training since early 2011, and I introduced him to quite a few of my friends, and that through the coaching world. So he's got to do that. Like I was saying, he came over end of July, first week of August, which is the beginning of training camp. He had a week off. So he spent his week off in between training blocks with Northampton. He came and flew to Cleveland, and we stayed with the Cleveland Browns for almost a whole week of their first week of training camp. He was welcomed. We were welcomed in. A friend of mine's the assistant strength coach, Evan Marcus, and Evan and I have known each other 20 plus years. So Evan asked the brand new head coach, and he let us come in. We had run of the place. We could go to any meetings that we wanted to. So Ben would sit in on some of the offensive line meetings, or we'd watch the defensive line practice. We also got to eat very, very well. They get fed very well at training camp. And they even have a nap trailer. They bring in a trailer that has different beds in it, like little beds and little areas. Yeah. And you can take a nap because they go to training camp at probably, I think they had to report by 7:30 in the morning, and they might not get out till 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
They're there the whole day, going to meetings, going to practices, going to weights, going to all the different things that they have to do. They have quite a bit of downtime as well, so they have that. So Ben would be going on a run. My friend Evan would be doing something. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go for a walk. I gotta keep my heart healthy. I'm gonna go for a walk. I walked right to the nap trailer. Took me a nap, got up, went back to the cafeteria, got me a snack. Then I thought you were. Yeah. I must have went opposite of you. Wherever you were running, I was opposite of that.
Brilliant.
And until a couple days later, he caught me coming out of the nap trailer. So, and that was a lot of fun for Ben to see that level. But obviously, I worked in that in training camps, but nothing like these guys are now. I mean, when I worked training camps, it was the mid '90s. So what these guys get, just just how enormous some of the guys were, like your offensive linemen, 6'6", 6'7", but weighing 300 and so what, 135, 140, 145, 150 kilos, some of these guys. And to watch them move was amazing, not just to Ben, but to me as well. And it's something that I've harped on with Ben, with all of my athletes, whether it's rugby or anything else, is flexibility. Like I said, I'm a big boy. I have a 400 kilo squat number of times in my powerlifting career, and I can still damn near do the splits. I'm 58 years old. I can still damn near do the splits. I can pull my leg up. I mean, flexibility keeps you fairly healthy. It didn't help my Achilles that keep blowing out, but so that was something that I'd always preached to Ben. And when he got to watch some of these just ginormous guys, how flexible they were, it really kind of took you just not just to get into their position, but even beyond that. And it really kind of resonated with Ben. And we got some good training ideas. I've always been a big believer in not running the big guys all the time and using other ways of getting some cardiovascular fitness in on them. And Evan had some really good, almost like meathead circuits, just so using, using a lot of, there we go with the Strongman Circus. So we went out to the indoor football field, and Evan had been doing like, no, you're not going to beat Ben in anything. No, I'm going to get him on this one. He's not going to be able to handle this. I'm like, okay, you go for it. So it was 2 minutes on a ski ergometer, so X amount of whatever meters it was. But then you had to take a 30-pound medicine ball and scoop toss backwards across the field and back. And then the next station was you took a 100-pound medicine ball on your shoulder, and you put 100 pounds of weight on a sled, and you pulled it across the field, and then you switched shoulders and came back. And then he had a prowler set up. You had to push the prowler out, you had to do arm over arm pull with a rope, and then push the prowler back. And it was many times as you can go, 5 minutes, whatever time it was. Ben finished, and Evan was just starting his fourth round. I quit after 2. I mean, I was done. I used the I'm too old for this shit one. So, but Evan was just, I don't understand. I'm like, you got to watch the game of rugby to understand the motor that guys like Ben, Owen, and quite a few of these other guys have. And he was just amazed at it. And then the competitive nature that all of us seem to have. So we did a couple of grip challenges, and it was always competitive. And the players were just torturing my buddy Evan because Ben and I, the three of us looked like we could be brothers. So it was, and the players would come in, and Ben, being as humble as he is, he's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I play rugby. They're like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, I play, I played in New Zealand, I played here, and they were walked off. They're like, oh, so he's pretty good. I'm like, dude, that guy was won 2 gold medals in World Cup. I said, he was a member of the All Blacks. Well, why the hell didn't he say that? The kid, the Scottish Hammer, the punter that they had signed. I guess his dad is from Scotland, or his parents are, and he played some football here. His father was an RAF stationed in the U.S. for a while, and he ended up going to a small, predominantly black college because that's the only place they would let him punt. And he ended up beating out the guy that was one of the premier punters in the NFL. He beat him out, and he's still with the team now.
Oh, wow.
They call him the Scottish Hammer. So yeah, we were talking to them and all of that. So it's been fun. It's been good. And then I got to, like I said, when we signed our deal with Claremont, and I went over, I got to spend a few days with Ben. So I got to see Chris Boyd, who I knew from the from the Hurricanes, and I got to meet the scrum coach and talk to him, some of the other guys, and I finally got a decent cup of coffee. Well, I'm drinking my tea over here. That's not even close. So I have to come back so I can get some coffee.
And I've seen sort of pictures and videos of the facilities at Claremont. They look pretty impressive. What were your thoughts on them?
I was pretty impressed with what they put their body through. I mean, 11 months of a season, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then talking to the head strength coach and Sebastian, we have a common friend, a guy named Peter Harding, who's the high performance director for Tonga. I've known Peter for 20 years. I met him at the same time I met Ashley. And Peter actually hired Sebastian 15, 16 years ago when he was in Claremont, and then he left, and they wanted to keep the French guy. He was doing the academy, so they moved him to the parent club. So, because he was kind of standoffish, what's this American doing sitting here? He's this and that. And I was texting Peter, and I told Sebastian, I'm like, hey, your friend Peter Harding, right? And he looked at me. I was like, yeah, he's talking some smack, but it's in French, and I don't understand French. So I handed him my phone, and all of a sudden, all the barriers were down. Then, because we knew somebody, and I completely understand that. I'd be kind of standoffish if somebody was sitting in my weight room, and had no clue on who the hell they were or anything else. So, not that I'm protective, but I'm protective. But so it was good. It was a really good learning, and then I got to. Because I'll always step on my soapbox with some things. So we were talking. He's got a couple of big Georgian boys. Geez, they were strong. And so we talk about Olympics. Well, these guys, they can't do it because they're beat up here or there. So I taught them how to do dumbbell power cleans, as opposed to doing them with the bar. And when I first learned how to do dumbbell power cleans, it looked like an ugly hammer curl. With the dumbbell, this way. And now I've learned how to do them holding this way and using my traps more. My buddy Evan taught me that, and it's been great because I have some flexibility issues with my wrist and that, and I can still do stuff. So I introduced it to even the NOLA Gold players and other ones is an option. Not the best, not what you want to do instead of some power cleans or hang cleans, but if you can't do it comfortably, and you're going to decelerate it coming in, it means you're not going to really get much out of it. But with the dumbbell, you can. And then I actually was showing them how to use a log as well, like Strongman logs, the metal ones, because you got that neutral grip there. You can keep it down, and you're just going to roll. You can roll it up, so you just get in a better position to catch it, so that all that pressure doesn't go in the wrist or into the elbows, into the shoulders, and just destroy stuff. You're already destroying it playing rugby, so why beat it up? Why beat it up further in the weight room? That's the same thing for using different bars, and Sebastian and I talked about several of the different bars that are out there. Not just the safety squat bar, but there's one called the Ox bar from Sornex. It has a different break at the top. It breaks and then comes down, almost like some of the Camberg bars.
Yeah.
But the way that Richard Sorn designed that break was it's wide enough and big enough to keep it off the bar, off of your spinal cord. So you get guys with neck injuries, you get guys that that have had like a stinger or some shoulder or some scap issues because of the nerves coming through, and this will keep it kind of off of that. Plus, it gives a little bit more contact. If you're high bar squatting and you got a guy with traps on, big old traps, he's going to have a little bit less bar contact, and the bar will be wiggling around. So with this bar, it doesn't do it as much. So between like that, the log, which the log is part of the reason that you see a lot of the strongman guys using the big heavy dumbbells instead of a bar. Trying to keep their elbows and everything fixed in a position, even with a bar, kind of hurts. Otherwise, if the bar was always going to be better, then you would have guys, using a bar, but they'd rather try to get up a pair of, well, for you guys, 60, 70, 80 kilo dumbbells. Try to get them up in a position so this way they can have an elbow here, an elbow there. You don't have to be locked into almost like a machine position. No, you can get stronger and not make things worse. Because for throwing for so many years, my right shoulder does not like me. So that one will always be down. It'll always be a little bit different. My elbow's a little bit messed up on that side. So the dumbbells work a lot better for me.
Yeah, that's a great tip, especially for, like, say, in rugby with the wrist or shoulder injuries that are so common. Yeah. That's a good tip.
Yeah, and like I said, I love my Olympic list, but if I can do a hang clean with a log, and then force them to go into a press off of that. They really make sure that they get it up high enough. They don't just leave it down here, but that log lets them get their elbows all the way through, go into the press, and then bring it back down. It's not as great as a bar, but I'm not training weightlifters. I'm training this guy, and to get stronger, to get more powerful, to get more explosive.
Exactly.
So whatever the hell I got to do is the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and it might even more mimic, lifting and the line out and things like that as well. I know you can sometimes get a bit carried away with sport-specific exercises, but
right.
It just works the body in a similar way that's going to carry over to the game. So it's a really good point.
And I use when Owen was first starting to kind of get away from doing snatches. He had talked to me about that. He just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. I mean, it just hurt. And he loves to do them. Like you can do this, this, and this, and you can do medicine ball throws. Because I mean, from before we talked and all that. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of medicine ball. Yeah. I mean, the Olympic lifts are explosive, but to me, the Olympic lifts are explosive strength. I want to get a release of that energy, or I want to get I don't want to decelerate it at the top, which is what you have to do to catch. So I want to be able to extend all the way through. So, I'm going to use the medicine balls. To me, the medicine ball for big guys is like using plyos for the little guys. I need those hips to be explosive. I need to fire it off. I have a player over in Canada right now, Blake, who is he's playing in one of their top, and I make him put two medicine balls out on a wall, and he had to. It's one, whatever they are. They could be 16 pounds, they could be 12 pounds, doesn't matter. But he has to get it up, down, so he has to explode up off of the ball, get himself into that good position, chest pass it, drill it off the wall, shuffle over to the other one, get that one, do that, get ready, find the other ball, shuffle back over, find the other ball, get it, throw it up. So he's got to do 4 touches on the ball, and he has to get down on his chest every time. So as I explained to him, is like if you're out of position, or if you're not in a good position to do something, that ball is not really going to hit the wall very hard. But if you're in a good mechanical position, like you would be after you get up out of a tackle or you get up off of a ruck or anything like that, you want to be in that good position, scanning the field. So now you have to find a ball, you have to go to it. And you do that a few times, and the heart rate goes up out of the roof. And most of the time, they don't like me. They like the result. They just don't like me after that.
No, that's another cool drill as well as an option. Now, this question we ask all the guests, and obviously we've asked you this before, and it's what's the biggest mistake rugby players make when it comes to strength and conditioning. And last time you kind of highlighted, which you see a lot, is where players are like, "Oh, I'm in season. It's just maintenance." And like I said, for those French players, you can't be in maintenance for 11 months of the year. So obviously you can't use that as your answer again. You've got to do something else. So it might be something that you've seen more recently in the last 4 years, or what do you think is the second biggest mistake, I guess?
Concentrating too much just on maximal strength. A lot of guys, they just want to concentrate on being strong, especially, my guys, or which would be, in the tight 5 or even the front row guys. Yeah. You still got to be able to use the strength. There's other ways, like we were just talking, there's other ways around the Olympic lifts and that, but a lot of times just not really wanting to work what's comfortable, which is that maximal strength. That's a good one. That's a fun one to develop and everything else. And then not working enough speed. A lot of the conditioning, like the mass conditioning or this, that, it's just not fast enough. And then you want to get some speed work in. So those would be 2 things that I keep seeing quite a bit of, is just not enough athleticism. So after you get done doing, your heavier squats or your heavier everything like that, or even I do a lot before when I write programs, I write it before. So you might have some 10 or 15 meter sprints before, and they might be like a little rolling, roll in, take off, gear back down, just to get that nervous system firing, just for that speed, and then go inside and do that. Because I'd rather you see you warm up like that, maybe some med ball throws, and then go inside the gym and get your strength work done, and then you're done. And if you have accessory work to do, or front row, you need to make sure, we're putting some size on, some quality size on the shoulders. Sometimes when I tell people we're going to put some size on you, it's not opening a bag of Cheetos and putting some mass on your gut. If you can't see your feet, you really can't do much out on the rugby pitch. And it was like that in football with my high school kids. Their coach would tell them, "Hey, you need to gain 30 pounds this summer." Yeah, no kids gaining 30 pounds in the summer, but so they took that to eat like a horse, going through McDonald's, 50-piece chicken nuggets. I had one kid that used to come to the gym, and at least once a week he had a 50-piece chicken McNugget. And his mom's like, "Oh, you made me drive through the McDonald's and get him a 50-piece chicken McNugget." And I looked at him, I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm going to see all of those McNuggets here pretty soon because you've got to do some stuff, and it's hot." And it was like, my workout buddy Darren was like, "Does he drive?" "No." Oh. Well, then he really didn't make you do anything. But I said, there's a place for everything. There's a place for that maximal strength. I like to take that maximal strength and find it, work it, but then make it repeatable as well. So you can have a nice 200 kilo deadlift. I like a clean pull a little bit more, or at least with a little bit of a shrug, because I don't ever want to just get to the top of a lift and stop. I want, even if it's just a little hip shrug, even if the ball, just think about continuing through like you're going to continue through on a tackle or anything else. But do that, and then bring that weight down just a little bit and get some repeated strength. It's one thing to get it one time, but I'd like to see you get it, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Well, I don't do any 4s. I'm that much of a meathead. It's 3, 5, or 8. Those are the rep numbers. I couldn't program 7 to save my. I've tried. I couldn't program the number 7 to save my life.
One of my old bosses used to do it, and the players used to freak out when they saw 7 in a program. It used to send them crazy.
Oh yeah, I could go 12, 8. 5, 3.
Yeah,
I'm great at 2, 1. And I do the same thing. And it's a thing though with the guys that like the strength. I'll do the same thing. I'll fall into, if I don't have a program written and a goal set in place, I will fall back into what's the most comfortable for me. What's the most comfortable for me? Getting stupid strong. Even at 58, I'm still trying to get stupid strong.
Yeah.
And so. But there's other things that I need to do. I was getting strong here, getting strong there, and took a look at my legs. After I blew my Achilles right before I moved here 2 years ago, I blew my other Achilles, and like my flexibility is a little bit different. Getting down to the ground, my ankles. I've been working on that, and now that I can finally get down there, like earlier in the year, I was finally able to get down there where I was really comfortable, like using the trap bar. With no blocks underneath, no high handles, just the regular handles. Yeah. Is trying to get down there, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, why is my rear end and my hamstrings hurt so bad? And then I looked at a video of me doing it, and I was like, I thought I was doing trap bar deadlifts, not trap bar rows. Like I looked like I was doing a barbell row because I couldn't get my butt down there because my knees and hamstrings had tightened up so much from not getting down. So using exercises like that, I'll promote my flexibility that way. I like to, get some stretching in the evening, a little bit of foam rolling. When I got something that hurts, I don't seem to do very well at doing it maintenance wise, but like I said, to me I'm still a real big believer, like getting strong throughout the season, but you got to pick and choose your battles. When I was in the NBA, you had an 82-game season. When I worked with Bob Sutter's, a long season there. I mean, and that's, you have to look at the schedule and start looking and saying, all right, well, this game here is not that tough. This team's not that bad. Well, this is going to be a big physical team, so why don't I give them some recovery here? And even if it doesn't fit inside of your 4-week block or 6-week block or 3-week block, whatever you like to program, sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone as well and look at that and say, well, you know what? I need to get this guy, I need to get him a little bit stronger right here. and then I could give them, 2 weeks, and then I can give them a little bit of break, while they do that, and then I can pick it up on the other side of that, which is kind of like we had talked, is what I did with Ben a lot of times when they would make that long trip from Christchurch to go play in South Africa, and then knew that the bars in South Africa weren't that great. They weren't going to spin like the ones that they had access to back home and everything else. So we would make that more of a power bodybuilding kind of a cycle. Knew that when they first got off the plane, they were going to be tight from sitting on a plane for so darn long, and that. So to me, it's looking at the whole schedule and doing that. And that's what I talked with Sebastian about. Is we just talked about different ways of getting strong. And then there's times where you got to bite the bullet and let them get a little bit strong. Add some stuff in it at the end of it, like the plyos. I mean, there's no reason that a big guy shouldn't do plyos. I saw you guys had put up Gunnar Werner's video. I actually trained with one of his old workout partners when I was in Germany, stationed there. And I like throwing. Obviously, it's why the Highland Games were so obsessed to me. Is that blend of you got to be stupid strong to hold a 56-pound weight and spin and throw it, or throw it for height, but you still got to be athletic and explosive enough to throw that 28-pound weight. The cabers and everything else. Wide shoulders and short arms. The hammer was never my friend. That was painfully that I could possibly have. Kind of like in powerlifting, the bench press. Great squat, really good deadlift, and then a bench press where that was in kilos. No, that was my weight in pounds. I'm that pathetic. Hey, can we do shoulder press instead? Like push press behind the neck instead? I'm great there. So I could probably still do more weight push press behind the neck than I can a bench press. It's really, really bad.
Well, I think a lot of what you said there, it goes back to what you said earlier, that we kind of gravitate to what we're good at, and like you say, type 5 and especially front row players that gravitate to the kind of strength side of things, and also when you were saying about, I'm glad you mentioned it, how some of them put on size the wrong way, don't do it over time, and slowly put on lean mass upon a bit too much fat. So how do you deal with those front row players who maybe need to lose a bit of fat mass? Because it's always, there's kind of the psychological angle of it where they don't want to lose weight because they're worried it's going to affect their scrummaging.
Mass moves mass. Yeah. So that's the theory that comes with that. That's a hard one for me. I'll usually sit down and we'll talk about that. And then trying to give them options to not just run. A lot of times, because we had a couple here and that needed to lose some weight, had a couple of dad bods and not good. So, but what happened was, doing some of the stuff that they were doing, they ended up cannibalizing their muscle tissue, and they still got fat. They lost weight, but what weight did you lose? So trying to talk to them about their diet, and that's hard here in the MLR because we got this past season, we had a great guy that was cooking for us for lunch, and we had lunch almost every day, and it was pretty damn healthy. It was really good, but it's when they're away from everything. So trying to educate them a little bit more on their eating. You can't come over here to lift at 8:30 in the morning and you haven't eaten yet. Don't think that protein shake is going to be the best option. So trying to teach them how to make, steel cut oatmeal that takes a half hour to make, and put it in a great big container and just, spoon it out a little bit and, microwaving it with a couple of hard boiled eggs makes it easy to eat healthy. And I mean, that's what I have in the morning for breakfast and that. So trying to get that part, and then trying to get them to understand that the weight you have is the weight you have to carry around the field. And if your coach is playing an up-tempo game that really wants to get in there and keep moving, you can have cardiovascular fitness, but if you don't have some strength and explosiveness, you're not moving that body very fast. And a lot of guys, they like I said, they with a lot of the slower running, obviously trying to, get that cardiovascular fitness in, but not having the ability to be able to move, 5 meters in any direction and do it over and over and over again without grabbing your knees, and that's it. So a lot of that is with that. So, and that's why I like I use medicine balls for circuits when I can, if I can find a wall big enough. And then the Strongman Circuits that my buddy Evan had come up with, and then I kind of hybrid and looked at it a little bit. Those are really good ways of doing it because you can get that cardiovascular fitness, you can get that appetite for strength that you have, but you're gonna drop some weight. You know, you're gonna drop some of that fat because it's not hard enough to be, you know, that aerobic side where you're really, you know, grabbing at some of that muscle tissue, you know, for energy. You know, you really kind of stand within there because you're moving from exercise to exercise, and you can put them any way you want. You know, I didn't have a ski ergometer. I used a tire and a sledgehammer, you know, the other day, and then pulled a sled and that kind of stuff. Or you can, you know, and I include those as kind of like finishers. I'll use a kettlebell at the end of a workout. We might do kettlebell clean and press. Might do some other stuff. It'll always be a full body movement where they're getting things moved up. But a lot of times, especially here, I don't know about there, but a lot of times it's eating. It's just getting a hold of their eating and just hardening some things up. If they feel comfortable playing at 120 kilos, and I'm telling them you maybe 115, and that's a psychological thing there. So maybe we might start at 118 and kind of stay there. I always bring some of that because he stays very lean, very strong, but very lean. He's not carrying a lot of fat or anything else around. There's no belly jiggle. He's got, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the one that I look at. And this year we were getting ready to, we signed with a new medical team that will provide all of our physios and all of our other stuff with Tulane Medical. So we got them late. I think we were already getting ready for our first game when we got them. So we didn't have them during preseason or anything. So we didn't get to do all the medical stuff. So this year it looks like we're going to for next season, we'll do body fat testing. They'll do that because they have, Tulane University is a really good university here in New Orleans. So they have their whole university. They have a great football program. A friend of mine happens to be the strength coach for in that, but they also are a medical school. So they'll have like real. This is what these people want to do. Exercise physiologists and everything else. So I don't have to do it, which is fantastic for me. So we've got GPSs in about the second week, but no help on how to put it together. We had to kind of learn it, and then they were gonna have some courses. The whole MLR got it. A lot of us had never really used it before. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm okay. And then they have, guys in their biomedical department that's what they want to do. So they were going to come out and set it all up and monitor it and do the reports and everything else. So it was like, okay, great. So that'll be for next year. So we'll have a little bit better idea next year on some of that, but, and then getting the coaches to, talk to the players. So, for me, it would start first with their position coaches. So their forwards coach and their head coach, they have an idea of how big they want them or where they want them. But, to me, that's it. It's just, it's a touchy thing because when I first started coaching in college, you couldn't weigh the girls. There were a lot of eating disorders in the mid '90s. That came out of that, so you had to be real careful walking around that. So I always kind of prefer that the medical experts, the physios and all of that, the nutritionists, I prefer that they do theirs. Just like I don't want them in my lane, I don't want them in the weight room dictating to me anything. I don't want to step on their toes either and tell them, hey, well, Ed said I needed to lose 10 pounds. So I'm just doing all of this, and they're looking at it like, that's not the right way of doing it, So that's their expertise. So I would rather let them do what their job is.
Yeah, definitely. Now, like in your own training and the the training you program for your clients and things, you've obviously exposed yourself to lots of different, strength sports. You mentioned Highland Games, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and we briefly spoke about your old school lifters on the last podcast.
Yeah.
What can you kind of glean from those kind of lifters, and is there any one that you'd recommend like looking into or reading up on?
I've kind of lifters are for if you're a lifter. The power lifters, the weight lifters, the old strongman. I like the old strongman, the 80s and 90s, where it was still a little bit more athletic, which is kind of how I got to the Highland Games so much. Is I'm not that. I mean, my wrists aren't that big, my hips aren't. I'm not that wide. And so strongman wasn't never going to be the sport for me. I also watched how many biceps were torn and everything else it meets. So, but I like those older ones. I like the older power lifters that I was around, that I grew up around. Rick Gogler, who was my trainer, who was a world champion from Corpus Christi, Texas. I actually got out of the Army and moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, knowing nobody except for him, just to power lift for him. Just to be on, be able to be trained by this guy. This was in 1985. I was stationed about 6 hours from Corpus Christi. I used to get in my Jeep and drive down there almost every other weekend to lift, and then drive back to go to duty. So those guys, they were athletic as well. Like I said, we used to run sprints. We used to do all kinds of other stuff. We didn't just lift. Now powerlifting has become very, I move here, I do this and that. So some of the things you can get from some of the newer powerlifters, there is one that I'll tell everybody to follow is Donnie Thompson.
Yeah.
Donnie has got some fabulous ideas with not just with his rollers. The bow tie has helped my shoulder quite a bit. A lot of his other ideas and things like that he puts out. I mean, it was him and Evan that taught me how to use the kettlebells more. And
that's how I heard of him. He was one of the powerlifters to kind of adopt kettlebells, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and he's a really smart guy, but like keeping the body healthy. You got a lot of powerlifters, pec tears, bicep tears, and all of that, and he's got ways of keeping that from happening with his stuff, and he puts a ton of stuff out for free. My other one is my buddy Aaron Asmus, who used to work for Sornex, and now he's back. This is his second stint coaching for the USC. Good God, if I said UCLA, he'd have killed me. He's at USC. Actually, Ben just talked to him yesterday. Ben said, I got to call Ben later because as Ben moves into coaching, this is what I mean about him will be a great coach. So he's going to move into coaching. He's going to move into coaching 18 to 23, 25-year-old guys like we do. Well, how do I get them to buy in? How do I get them to do the things that I want them to do? How do I get them to understand? Like, I'm coming from private work where they were paying me into MLR. I'm still having, some growing pains on that. The best thing to do, I told Ben, would be talk to Aaron. And those two got hooked up together. And Ben said he's got to rewrite all the notes because he's got notes all over the place from talking to Aaron. So, and Aaron gives a lot of stuff. He does a pen and paper strength app besides his own thing. He's got some pretty cool workouts and that kind of stuff that he puts up, and a big motivation on things. But for Aaron was a preferred walk-on, which means, you can come to school and throw as a shot putter, but I don't have a scholarship for you. And then I know that he earned himself a scholarship at the University of Tennessee, and he ended up becoming a national champion in the shot put. And Aaron's a big boy. He's the one that started Squattober. Squat every day in October. Yeah. That's Aaron's love right there. And so he's got some really good ideas with that. But he was athletic. He had to be able to move. He had to jump. He had to clean. He had to snatch. His coach was Tommy Moffitt, who's at LSU here. Tommy is probably one of the greatest strength coaches around. And that a shame that he doesn't really put a lot of stuff out or anything like that. There's a few of them. I think Tommy's just a little bit older than I am. Even I'm still learning how to put stuff on social media. But, Tommy's does a hell of a job at UCLA, where it seems like a lot of guys, like Alabama fired their strength coach, Cochran, and he went to Georgia, but they brought in a couple other guys, and they're more like it seems like they're almost a lot more science on that side, and it's just not that blend right there. And much as I like my buddies from Alabama, LSU's still going to stomp the daylights out of them doing, heavy triples in a power clean, behind the neck jerks, heavy squats, big benches, a lot of dumbbell work. But when you say old school, a lot of guys kind of like, oh shit, you just do this. They don't understand that we do look at, the science behind things. And I've been looking at the science. I've been looking at the physics behind every sport that I've ever coached, including the stuff that I do. You can't throw in the Highland Games without understanding physics. You can't look. I got into rugby. I mean, my education on the front row and even the second row was living with Ben for almost 6 weeks after he won World Cup in 2011, and I went down there, I think the next day or 2 days later. He had just moved into his house after the earthquakes in Christchurch. He'd just moved in the day before, and my education was in the morning watching videos with him so I could understand better the body positions. When I worked with a lot of basketball kids, I would sit, even though I was with the Spurs, I would sit behind their parents at high school games, because several of the guys, their parents, they played for the Spurs, and I would sit behind the floor. I assumed that I knew nothing. I just sat there with my mouth shut and a pen and a pencil and a notepad, and I would take notes on that. People make the wrong assumption when you say you're old school. They think I'm just gonna make them lift heavy, or I'm just gonna do this. Well, I didn't get a master's degree in physics of human movement for nothing, and so I use it, and I use it quite often. Unfortunately, I think that I use my philosophy degree that I got as an undergraduate student when I got my PE degree. I got a degree in philosophy as well, and I think I use that more than anything else to get these guys to do what I want them to do. I'm real big about educating them. Hey, this is what you're going to do, and this is why you're going to do it. And I have to find different avenues to get everybody to, because we're the guys in the front row, big old friggin' meathead. Of course, they want to lift weights. They want to squat heavy. They want to pull. Some of the backs, not so much. So I always go back to when I was with the Spurs, or even in college coaching. But with the Spurs, I had a guy, Malik Rose, good ball player, kind of a small, we call him a 4, so a power forward, but kind of small. So he needed to be strong. He needed to be fast. He needed to be able to, he was aggressive. So he would give me his workout. My boss would give me his workout, and then Malik would fill it out. And I looked at Malik. I'm like, dude, seriously, I'm not putting my initials on this program. This is a joke. You did 40 kilos for your hang cleans, and you did 4 sets of 3 with 40 kilos. I got girls that are in high school that do that more weight than that. So if you do this for me, because I figured out what he liked. So if you do this for me, I'll teach you 2 new arm exercises today. Oh, he would go and he would kill himself, and then I had to teach him 2 new arm exercises. For David Robinson and a few of the other players, we would do like Vern Gambetta is one of my guys I really like. Him and Al Vermeil when he was with the Bulls. A lot of medicine ball work. And so like teaching David how to do pattern work on medicine ball, getting some flexibility. And I told David, I'm like, one day, I don't even know how I came up with this, but I was like, David, listen, if you do this is really going to help your golf swing a lot more. Because if you get flexible and it can stay back there, I started, going to that physics part of it, and you accelerate, you'll be able to accelerate the club head. You won't be so tight going back there. Oh, talk to me, Big Ed. Tell me more. I was like, yeah. You make a living playing basketball, and you spend part of that betting guys, while you're playing golf. But yeah, let's concentrate on your golf game. But it made them do the things that I wanted them to do. So always trying to find ways, and it kind of bit me in the butt a little bit this year here with NOLA Gold. It's trying to get a little too many personal programs going at the same time and having to take the time to develop them. So instead of getting, this is what you need to get done and then start, hybriding off of that, because we really do get a lot of guys that are all over the place here. We get guys that have never lifted weights. We get guys that are at the beginning of their career out of college, or we get guys, a lot of our foreign players are towards the end of their career, and they're coming over here and they're really doing a big service to it is they're teaching the guys how to play a little bit different. You get some Americans here, and while we're getting better in that, it's still too many places. It's still a club sport. There's not a lot of coaching. It's not everybody's a University of California with Jack Clark, and that not everybody's going to be Penn State where they got good coaches and that. You're going to have a lot of other places where the coaches are volunteers, or they're getting a little bit of money from the rec sports, from the club sport, so they're not getting a lot of stuff from the university. They're not getting a lot of funding or anything else from the university. Getting some help, but not very much. So until that kind of changes, so a lot of the foreign players, they come in and they kind of fill that gap as we call player coaches if you want. I mean, they're really running a lot of the stuff, helping the coaches out quite a bit. So, but you get guys that are towards the end of their career, really haven't lifted that much or anything else like that, or coming off some injuries. I got to work around that as well. So it seemed like I had 50 different programs going for 30 guys.
No, some great points there, and it's going to make my next question quite hard to answer, because you've covered tons of really good advice all the way through. It's what advice would you give to an upcoming strength coach?
Learn. Don't be afraid to reach out to other strength coaches. Social media is a great thing now. I mean, the podcast that you put out, the podcast that a few other people put out are really fantastic. And then reach out to that person. Social media gets you to reach out. I mean, I get people reach out to me all the time, not just for rugby, but from I had heart surgery 5.5 years ago, and how I came back from that and everything else, and that. So reach out to these guys. When I was first coming up, I had a notebook, and in my notebook, I had the coaches' numbers and their names, and it's something about them. Something personal about them that I learned maybe at a strength conference or something. And I would call them every so often and just kind of touch base with them. There was some guys, I knew they were in season with the NFL. I wasn't going to bother them. So I'd call them in the middle of the night, like when I got home from something, when I knew they weren't there, and just leave them a voicemail and reintroduce to myself or say hi, send them a card, that kind of stuff. And then, so when I was finishing school and I was going to graduate school looking for graduate positions, I had several different options. I had a lot of options to go to, and I learned a lot more. And I learned a lot from everybody. Obviously, I love the free weights, and that's where I kind of, my bread and butter is. Back in the day, there were a lot of they called them hit guys. That was when NOLA and hammer strength first came out, and 1 or 2 sets to failure, know this, know that. But I even learned some stuff from guys like that. And then now with the online availability of coaching courses, there's a company called Altis, ALTIS.
Yep.
Stu McMillan runs that. I'm taking his short sprint course right now. I'm going to take the throwers course, the throws coaches course, and that's only because it has some strength and power in there. So I want to look at that, and then just for the mechanics of it and make myself think. And he has also one called Essentials, which is a kind of a shorter course for his foundations course, which are I'm looking at it as like teaches you some of the things you probably didn't learn in college, where you're at university, where you would go into your first job and have your head coach would have to kind of teach you through that. So Stu's running. He's always running. He's running like 20% off. I told him he has to stop that because I had the one courses bought, and then I bought the other 2 because they were on sale. Like, son of a gun, you got to take that off. He's talked to me before. He's got a course that he's finishing writing on speed work for field sports. Because you look at track and it's like, yeah, that's a very upright torso. They get upset if you cross that white line into their lane, can't touch them. Everybody's like, I make fun of my track guys all the time. I'm like, because back in the day, Al Davis, when he owned the Raiders till he passed away, 84 Olympics were in Los Angeles, at his Coliseum where the Raiders were playing, and he was watching these guys sprinters go. He's like, oh man, they get out of football field, they can go. No, there's a reason they're sprinters. They can't catch. They can run that way. They can run 100 meters, and it takes them 5-10 minutes to recover before they run another one. So, there was only a few guys that the NFL guys were jonesing over. It's like weightlifting with some of the guys at the Olympic weightlifting level. You see some of the leaner, super heavyweights. They're like, oh shit, I could teach that guy how to play football right now. I could do that. I'm like, no, there's a reason he gravitated to that sport. There's a big reason for it. So the learning for me was hard when I first started. So I got lucky in that I'm not too ashamed to go and talk to coaches at strength conferences or anything else. And they were very approachable back then. I haven't been to very many. I still talk to a lot of them with the social media and all of that. Man, you can learn so much getting out there and doing that. And a lot of the young ones, you got some good ideas. That's great, and share those ideas. But some of us guys that have been around for a while, we got good ideas too, and you need to kind of listen to us as well. Al Vermeil had a good one. And I said Al won 60 championships. What the heck? You there, Jamie?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've got you. Just I think the Wi-Fi dipped out a little bit.
Oh, that's more. But like I say about Al, 6 NBA championships. Everybody did Olympic lifts. I trained Will Perdue when he was with the Spurs, and he had played with the Bulls. He had Olympic lifting shoes at size 21. Wow. 21 Adidas lifting shoes. Steve Kerr, had lifted the Olympic lifts and Sean Elliott, but Steve did at University of Arizona under Meg Ritchie, who was a world-class thrower, first female strength coach in the Division I at University of Arizona, and then with the Bulls. So Al had said a couple of things, and one is he spent more money on staff development than he did on new equipment. So they would bring guys in, or they would go to clinics and things like that. And then his other one is, tell me what exercise you think you invented, and I'll tell you what we used to call it. None of the, everybody puts their own little twist on it, and don't get offended when somebody asks you to defend it. When I first started going to NSCA conferences in the mid '90s, they did a little thing. It was like from the floor, and basically you had a bench, and you put the bench out in the middle, and you stood up on the bench, and you talked about what you wanted to talk about. And they did it in the conference center. And I talked about doing strongman training, and using it for conditioning, and using it out, for fitness and all of that. And I got torn apart. You guys were, nitpicking at me and everything else, but I could defend what I wanted to talk about. And I didn't get hurt. I didn't get my feelings hurt. All right, yeah, I did a couple of times. I wanted to kick somebody in the head, but especially when a couple of years later, one of the guys that gave me the most amount of crap was in ESPN magazine doing the exact same damn thing that I talked about a few years. So. Like, you could at least given me a shout out during the interview, okay? You could have just at least said something. This bald-headed dude showed me this at a conference in Phoenix or something. But for me, education is real important, and education doesn't just mean go to university. Getting out there talking to people, but the courses, like I said, the one Stu is putting together, because that's so much different in field sports, and that. For speed work and for conditioning, But we never really get to, that perfect running form, high hip, looking around. Oh, if you do, you're going to get, your head taken off your shoulders. But, so he's kind of listened and wanting to do that kind of stuff. So that should be a real exciting course when it comes out. And I'll get a chance to see it before and give him some feedback on it. So I'm really happy about that. But I mean, think about, you've been coaching for a time now. The access to information now has even changed, just even for you, hasn't it?
Oh, heaps, yeah. Like I say, there's tons of those types of online courses, and like I say, it's easy to get to like world class coaches. On your phone, you can just send a question, and like I say, most of them are like you. They're pretty open to question and sharing their knowledge, and I think that comes over. Massively talking to you that you're a student of strength and conditioning, and whether it's in your own training or with your athletes, and the network you've built up and the kind of the stuff you learn from them, it comes out very easily, and that's obviously you're always thinking about how to improve things and stuff like that. And it does come across.
Yeah, I want to be the best for the athletes that I train. Not one size, and it's not one size fits all. Like I said, I love certain things, but not everybody's going to like it, so I can find ways around it. There are some things that are non-negotiable, but we'll work around it. One of our boys, Robbie Coleman, played in Australia for a long time. He's got a really nasty shoulder surgery where they kind of had to. I think his arm goes up to about here. Right. And he needed to get a little bit stronger, so we were using the safety bar squat. Oh, okay. So he's got some shoulder issues in his scap and everything else. I'm like, oh, have you ever belt squatted before? We got like the pit shark, the plate loaded belt squat where you can get some weight on it, not pneumatic or anything else. I introduced it to him, and he was using it, and then a couple of weeks later, he's like, "Mate, my leg," and he's a 15. He's a little back. He's like, "Mate, my legs have never felt this good ever." And he wanted to do some bench press work or some inclines, and he was trying to come down and not use a dumbbell, but he was stopping probably that far from his chest. It's like, dude, you can't really just kind of try to decelerate the weight and then change direction. It's got to touch. It's got to hit something, whether it hits the pins in a power rack and Elite Lifts has a nice half moon pad that the bench pressers will use, for where their bench press shirt takes over. Like instead of using a board, 2 board, 3 board, 4 board, they use this half moon pad. It clicks on the bar pretty well. I put it on the bar for him. He's like, "This is fantastic." Like, yeah, it's not the greatest, but it's going to help you not tear your shoulder up even more, and it'll get some strength and put some size back on you. And so trying to find ways around that, and in that's always going to be, to me, that's the key to a successful program, is being able to change stuff on the fly. Because you get guys, they never want to go to the physio, because nobody wants to go to the physio, because then you're stuck in that abyss over there, and it seems like you can never get back out. You got some guys that want to go over there because they got coffee. But you got a lot of guys, they want to roll through, grab some tape, they want to get something done, but they don't want to be stuck in there. They don't want to be stuck on a doing extra work on a watt bike or anything else. They just need a little bit. And much as I love some of my physio buddies, they get a hold of guys and they don't want to let go of them. So getting them out there and keeping them healthy and everything else, you really got to kind of be able to change it on the fly. I get guys that come in on a Monday. We played Saturday. They come in on Monday, like, I'm really sore. I'm really this. I'm really that. Like, all right. Did you talk to the physio? No, I'll talk to them before we go to practice. Like, all right. So I'll change some stuff. And then you get guys that want to take advantage of that. And they'll come in and they're like that. And then we like to play conditioning games on Monday, get them moving and all of that, and sit out some of the guys that played a lot of minutes. And I see these guys out there, one of the ones that was complaining that he was too sore to lift, and he's out there running around like a maniac, and it's like, all right. It's like, hey, you look like you're moving pretty well. Yeah. Okay, yeah, tomorrow I got a special workout for you. And you see them coming in with their tail tucked between their legs the next day, like, oh shit, what's he gonna do to me?
Yeah, we all know players like that. We all know players like that. Lastly, because we're running out of time,
Yeah.
Where can people learn more about you?
You can find me on Instagram at Ed Cosner, Facebook the same way, actually Twitter the same way. Man, really different there. Yeah, Ed Cosner, all of that. My website is Power Sport Strength Conditioning, and I'll gonna get ready to redo that and get some more information and stuff on there. And I have another Instagram called Type 5 Training, where I put some work that I do there. You think that with all this downtime with the virus and all of that I'd be doing that more, but no. But I've been really studying hard on the courses from Stu from Macmillan and reading from Dan Cleather put this book out. You see this one?
Yeah, I've seen that on social media. I have to check
it's
it out.
Actually pretty good. And I talked to him. It's got some really good stuff in it. And then I went back to reading the book called The System. Have you looked at that one yet?
No, I've actually looked in. Is that based on the Soviet?
Yeah.
That's come up a couple of times.
Johnny Parker's him and Al Miller, like fantastic school coaches from back in the day with the in the NFL. There's another Rob that was with them as well. It's a really good book. You have to check that out. So I've been kind of rereading that. I've just been taking the time to do that. Still doing some of my own training, outside, some of my own fitness work and that body weight exercises, mountain climbers, hill runs, medicine ball throws, stuff that I can do by myself. Don't need anybody else around.
Yeah, awesome.
So,
no, Ed, thanks for sharing that with us. And of course, we'll share all the links on the show notes. But yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully, this virus, it dies down soon, and you can get back to the season with the MLR. Cheers, Ed.
So it was great to catch up with Ed and obviously see what he's been doing the last few years and see how rugby's developed over in the States, as he kind of predicted in that very first podcast. And obviously going from strength to strength. And as we said, hopefully they get back soon to some sort of normality and get some games and some training under their belts. So Ed, thank you very much and all the best. And in the meantime, guys, please subscribe to us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, even Spotify. We're on there now. And of course, give us a 5-star review and keep checking us out at rugbyrenegade.com. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Renegade Podcast. For more quality rugby strength and conditioning information, check us out at rugbyrenegade.com. Rugby Renegade, building machines.